Happy Families podcast. It's the podcast for the time-poor parent who just wants answers now.
Parenting has never been more intense, and parents are kind of cracking up. We don't have time to do it all.
And now here's the stars of our show, my mum and dad.
G'day, this is Dr. Justin Coulson, the author of 6 books about raising happy families, and I'm here with my podcast partner and my life partner, Mrs. Happy Families, Kylie, mum to our 6 daughters.
Today we're going to be talking with Dr. Susie O'Brien, who is an author and a journalist, and we'd love for you, Susie, to tell us about yourself a bit.
Yes, I've been writing on parenting and social issues for News Corp newspapers for the last 20 years, which makes me feel old. And about 25 years ago, I did a PhD at the University of Queensland. And I look back at the title of my thesis, it was something to do with post-structuralist Foucauldian analyses of power, which I think is probably good that I leave that well behind me and concentrate on nice, positive, simple messages about parenting.
Yeah, so you and I, Susie, have had many conversations over the years as you've been looking for content and expert ideas and opinions for your newspaper articles. But can you tell me again, what was the name of that PhD thesis of yours? I love it.
It was a post-structuralist analysis of Foucauldian models of power in the university setting, addressing sexual harassment.
Such a show-off. Now, just to show off how far you've come since you've become a journalist, what's the title of the new book that you've written that we're going to talk about today?
I've written a book called The Secret of Half-Arsed Parenting, Raising Kids with Half the Guilt and Twice the Joy.
That sounds like a really big leap from where you were in your PhD days.
Well, you know what? I did a PhD and I always thought I was going to become an academic. But what I really wanted to do was be a journalist. And so at age 28, armed with a PhD, I applied for the Adelaide Advertiser as a cadet, and I think they took me on because they felt sorry for me, like, who is this woman and what does she want? And I've never looked back. I've had the most wonderful 20 years working in newspapers, and the first paper that ever took me on, started publishing my work, was the Courier Mail in Brisbane. So I'm a very proud expat Queenslander.
That's awesome, Susie. Can you tell us, how many kids do you have?
So I have 3. So my youngest is, I have to think about that, 11. And my oldest is 17, and my partner has 2 kids, aged 8 and 11. So between us, we've got 5. We're a bit like the Brady Bunch, but with no Alice to kind of make the dinner and clean the house.
You're right in the thick of it. Now, your book is basically a manifesto that I think can probably be summed up by this line from chapter 1. Actually, before I mention the line, to set up this line in chapter 1, you talk about all the stress and the endless push for being more hands-on as parents that mums and dads are experiencing today, and the sacrifices that parents make for their children, and the endless need to do more and do more and do more. And then you say this, and I'm quoting, "Doing less parenting doesn't seem to occur to anyone."
And it's really true. It took me ages to work out what was going wrong with our parenting lives, because parents today say they find it hard to find time to do everything. Half the time they don't even have time to have a bubble bath once a week. And so these days, often in families, we've got mum and dad both working full-time or working a lot. We put our hands up to be very hands-on at the kinder and the school and the footy club. We think we have to do everything asked of us. And we find that when the intensification of parenting means that we are expected to be managing their friendships, very hands-on at the school. We're taking them to activities and play dates all weekend. Like, parenting has never been more intense. And parents are kind of cracking up. We don't have time to do it all. And so what we're doing is we're certainly, the first thing that goes is our social lives. And it's certainly anything that doesn't do with the family socialising. So mum's book club, mum's bubble bath, mum's wine with the friends. And people are also doing less work. You know, sometimes we're cutting back on work hours so that we can be there for the kids. But doing less parenting hasn't occurred to anyone. Like, cutting out some of that hands-on, intensive, time-consuming parenting that isn't really making any of us happy, but which we think we have to do to be a good parent these days.
I'm really curious, Susie. What were your parents like growing up?
Child of the 70s, Kylie. So God. Actually, my mother was listening in on one interview we did, and she was texting me the whole time with tales of her lax parenting. Like, my sister was saying that she had to organise her own 8th birthday because mum and dad had been out the night before and just showed no signs of getting out of bed. So she cleaned the house, she made the party food or, put it out on the table and made her own birthday cake, aged 8. And it wasn't like that most of the time. They were very, very dutiful, very good parents. But the thought of them leaving work early to take my sister or I to activities, the thought of them arranging their weekends around what we wanted to do instead of stuff that they wanted to do around the house mostly, kind of cementing things into the ground, what parents did back in the 70s, wouldn't have ever occurred to them. Like, they ran their own lives and we fitted in with them. I'm not necessarily saying we have to go back to that, but I think the balance has moved too far in the other direction.
Justin was reading a line to me as he was devouring the book the other night, and it made me laugh out loud. You're a proponent of the 3-second rule.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know what? Once you become a parent, you have to apply the 3-second rules to everything, to the dropped ice cream, to the dropped dummy, to daddy's pants. Now we're a parent, 3 seconds is all you're going to get.
I actually saw a really cool meme the other day. It was a piece of bread on the ground, and then there was a sergeant germ and then a whole heap of lucky germs at the other end, and he was like, wait, 3 seconds?
You wait till the 3 seconds. Don't jump on the bread until 3 seconds is up.
And you guys would know, the more kids you have, the lower your standards drop. And, that's not necessarily a bad thing. When you have the first kid, they drop the dummy and you sterilise it and pop out the new dummy that you've got in your nappy bag. When the second kid drops their dummy, you run under the hot water tap and put it back in. When the third kid drops their dummy, you lick it and you put it straight back.
We've got 6 kids, Susie, so we've lived that dream nightmare.
Yeah. No dummies for number 6.
We're going to continue this in just a sec, Susie. We're going to find out a little bit about maybe some provocative things that you've written in your brand new book. That's right after this.
It's the Happy Families Podcast.
Imagine a home where discipline got results without anyone having to feel bad or in trouble. The Do's and Don'ts of Discipline is a webinar to help parents set limits with love, compassion and humanity. Find it now at happyfamilies.com.au/shop.
It's the Happy Families Podcast, the podcast for the time-poor parent who just wants answers now. And today we've been talking with journalist and author Susie O'Brien about her brand new book. We're having a lot of fun doing it too.
So, Susie, something that I found really provocative was what you said about the idea that parents are always complaining that they don't have time. Now, we talked about this just briefly before, but I think that it's worth spending more time on it because you've gone to the data in the book, and according to the National Centre for Social and Economic Modelling, Aussies have filled in their time use data surveys, and we have about 20% of our days available for leisure. Now, first of all, I looked at that and I thought, crikey, I'd do anything for 20% of my day as leisure. But I know that it's an average. So on average, while some parents are going to rubbish that and say, I do not have that amount of time, the NatSem data says that we do actually have this time. And is it that our kids are now getting it with us? Like, what are we doing with that extra 20% of our days that's available for leisure?
Well, I think that our kids, we're doing things with and for our kids. And you know what? In some ways, that's not a bad thing, but it means that we actually don't have time for anything else. And we're filling our time driving our kids around to places that they could probably get to themselves. We're not only dropping them off at sporting matches like my parents certainly used to do. My dad used to sit in the Kingswood out the back, about a block away and listen to the booth on the radio because the thought of watching my sister and I for endless hours play sport was just not on his radar. He would have driven home, but we lived on the other side of town. So, I think we're filling our days with things that don't necessarily make us happy, but we feel compelled to do these days. And, I look at Lego, and that's a really good example. When I was growing up in the 70s and 80s, Lego, you'd get a new box of Lego, you'd think it was Christmas. You'd open it out onto the living room floor. Your parents might swear if they stand on a piece. That's about the extent of their engagement on it. And they would leave us to make our wonky creations. These days, you know, Lego is all branded. You spend $200 on the Mandalorian X-Wing Starfighter, whatever they're called, and the parents sit down and they do the Lego with the kids.
And there's a right and a wrong way to do it.
Yeah, and you know what? The kids aren't happy because they're being told that they're doing it wrong. The parents aren't happy because it's boring, let's face it, and it's expensive and it takes up hours of our time. And when that X-Wing plane or whatever it's called has been finished, 8 hours later by the dad often, it goes up on the high shelf because it's too valuable to be played with. And I think, oh, that's just nuts. We're giving our kids these Lego, but we're not actually letting them play with it.
So I've had a thought, Susie, as we've been talking. You're saying that, you know, as parents we should ease up, that, you know, it's okay for us to have baked beans on toast for dinner and stop trying to do it all. But for me as a mum, I have to admit that even though I'm really exhausted, I also take pride in, you know, serving up beautifully cooked meals for my kids and, you know, making my house look beautiful. You know, as a mum of 6 girls, like I wish it wasn't so full on all the time, but I don't love it when I don't do all of that stuff because it doesn't make me feel great. So I personally feel good when I'm able to do all of the things that I want to do. So what would you say to someone who's argued that this book may be just a call for mediocrity and an acceptance of the meh, whatever kind of approach to parenting?
I think that if what you're doing makes you happy and makes the people in your life happy, then go for gold. I mean, there's a big part of this book that is about trust your gut. Like, you know the answers. People say all the time, are my kids on spending too much time on screens? If you're asking the question, then they probably are.
Yeah.
The biggest thing that younger mothers are saying to me, and I've done weeks of media interviews now about the book, the biggest question they raise is, do I have to cook everything from scratch? Is a squeezy pouch okay? And I say to them, how would I know? If you're asking the question, then it's obviously an issue, so it probably is okay to use the odd squeezy pouch. So it's really up to you and trusting your gut and your instincts as a parent. If you as a parent don't want to, you know, cooking the beautiful meals from scratch or from a can, whatever, and keeping the house in order is important to you, then go for gold. But it might be that in order to get that done and stay sane, you hold back on some of the activities and you say to the kids, I'm not driving anyone anywhere on Sunday, so that I've actually got some time for some family time where I'm not cooking or cleaning or doing something for someone else. So it's actually about making conscious decisions about what suits us as families and not following what I tell people to do or not following what the Instagram, you know, influencers say is the right way to parent.
I love this approach, Susie, just that recognition that, you know, parenting is not this one size fits all. And, you know, we have to go through our own filters to kind of work out, you know, what sits well with each of us.
And you know what? It's about giving us permission to parent the way that we want. And I think for me, and like I said, my partner says, because his parents never drove him anywhere. He always talks about how he walked everywhere. And of course, this is the middle of Melbourne, so it wasn't that bad. So it wasn't through the snow or anything. He says, oh, you drive the kids too many places. And I say to him, yeah, but for me, particularly with my older son, it's our time together. Maybe it's an excuse, but if I wanted to say no, I would. And so it's actually about going through that process of working out what makes you happy as a parent. And no one else can do that for us. And I think what we're letting happen is we're letting other people decide what a good parent is. Like, we're letting other people have control over our guilt and our minds about what we should be doing and how we should be spending our time. And if having takeaway 2 nights a week, which means that you can go to the park and throw the ball with the dog and kick the footy with the kids, gives you that time, that extra hour in the day, then that might be more important than cooking from scratch every night. Or you might feel that that meal and knowing that exactly what's gone into it is more important for you.
Susie, if there was one thing, just one message that you really want parents to take from the book, what would it be?
I want people to drop the guilt. And one of the things that people say is, I don't seem to be able to raise my kids the way I want to. And you think about that, that's nuts because we're the ones raising them. I want people to think about what they're doing as parents and question everything. You don't have to do everything that's asked of you. You don't have to parent the way you think other people want you to do it. They're your kids. Back yourself and make your own decisions.
You go, girl. It's a funny book, loads of great insights, some surprising data, and it's well researched, as you would expect from Dr. Susie O'Brien. Plus, it probably will make you fall in love with parenting again. That's my parenting review of it. Susie O'Brien, what do we need to know about the book, its title, and where we can get it?
It's called The Secret of Half-Arsed Parenting, and it's in all good bookshops now. It's online, and there's even going to be an audio book. So The Secret of Half-Arsed Parenting.
Thanks so much, Dr. Susie O'Brien. We hope you've enjoyed the podcast and thank you for listening.
Leave us a rating and review, by the way, if you do enjoy the podcast. We got Mama Evolving leaving us a 5-star review, 5-star rating, I should say, who said, I've been listening to this podcast a year now, and each new podcast is so relevant to what's happening in our world and to what the kids are going through. Great advice on parenting, what parents face in their own lives, how to help your relationship and give everyone in your family a super start. Keep going, Justin and Kylie. Love your work from Mama Evolving. We really appreciate those 5-star ratings and reviews. That's how people get to find out about the podcast. So please jump on and leave one for us. 5 stars are the ones that we like because that's when people get to find out about the podcast. We appreciate Justin Rulon from Bridge Media for his wonderful work producing the podcast, and our executive producer is Craig Bruce. If you'd like more information about making your family happy, you can find it at happyfamilies.com.au.